Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling one of the biggest questions out there. What is consciousness? You know that voice inside your head, the feeling that you are you? Is it just a happy accident of biology, or is there something more going on?
So this really sets the stage for a whole discussion today. Are we the architects or the devised? Think about it. Right now, we're on this incredible quest to build artificial intelligence, and in doing that, well, it's like we're holding up a mirror to ourselves. It forces us to ask, hey, if we can build a mind, does that mean our own minds were built?
So yeah, Section 1, architects are devised. For as long as we can remember, we've been builders, right? Architects. And now, we're right on the edge of creating actual new minds. We're trying to breathe life into silicon. It's this wild journey that started with, mechanical gears and is now getting super close to what might be truly sentient code.
And just look at how fast this is all happening. We're talking less than 200 years to go from Babbage's mechanical calculator, basically the blueprint, all the way to these complex neural networks that are designed to copy our own brains. We've gone from just number crunching to, creating. And that speed, that leap, it forces this really profound question on us. If we, with our limited brains, can pull this off, what could that possibly imply about where our own consciousness came from?
Okay, so before we get too deep into where consciousness might have come from, we kind of have to get a handle on what it even is. And let me tell you, it's one of the biggest puzzles in all of science and philosophy. It's this thing called the hard problem.
So, what are we talking about when we say consciousness? It's not just about being awake. It's that subjective awareness. It's literally the movie playing inside your head at all times. That little voice. The feeling of the sun on your skin, the taste of coffee. All of that is consciousness. And philosophers, they have this great word for these little bits of subjective experience, qualia. Think about it. You can describe the physics of the color red, the wavelength of light, how it hits your eye. But how do you describe the feeling, the actual experience of seeing red to someone who's never seen color? You can't, right? That inner experience, that's qualia. And it's right at the center of this whole mystery. And check out this number, 86 billion. That's roughly how many neurons you have firing away in your brain, making trillions of connections. That's the biological machine that's somehow generating this whole inner world. And what's wild is, we can actually watch it happen, sort of. Scientists can put you in a scanner and see which parts of your brain light up when you feel joy or taste something sour. They call these the neural correlates of consciousness. We can see the hardware running, we just don't know how it creates the software of you.
And this brings us to the absolute core of the problem. You've got what people call the easy problems, which honestly are not easy at all, but they're about mechanics. How does the brain take in information? How does it focus? How does it control your body? We can chip away at those. But then there's the hard problem. This was a term coined by the philosopher David Chalmers, and the hard problem asks, why? Why does all that electrical and chemical processing feel like anything at all from the inside? Why aren't we all just biological robots executing programs in the dark, with no inner movie, no subjective life? And that's the question nobody has an answer to.
So because of that hard problem, you get this really powerful philosophical argument. It goes something like this. Okay, so our physical brain, this 3 pounds of tissue, somehow creates our non-physical consciousness, right? Our thoughts, our feelings, our awareness. If a small, finite, physical thing can do that, then isn't it at least, plausible that a giant, infinite, non-physical consciousness could be the source of the whole physical universe? It kind of flips the script, and suddenly our own attempts to create AI start to look like a tiny echo of that much bigger possibility. Now, this idea that consciousness is something fundamental, something that was maybe given to us, that's not some new age concept. It's actually ancient. So let's jump into one of the world's oldest allegories that really tackles this head-on. The story of a creator giving its creation a very special and very risky kind of awareness. We're looking at a passage here from the Quran, from the allegorical story of Adam. And the declaration is made, I am about to place on earth a new creation that will have supremacy over it. Now, in this telling, Adam isn't just one guy. He represents the dawn of all humankind, a totally new kind of being on the scene. And right away, there's this really interesting tension. The angels, when many interpretations of this story represent the orderly, programmed forces of nature, like gravity or physics, they question this idea. They ask, will you place on it such creation as will cause disorder? They see the risk. They know that unlike them, this new being will have free will, the choice to follow the program or not. And the reply is just, I know what you know not. It sets up this huge drama, the risk of free will versus a deeper purpose. So the story unfolds in these 4 steps. First, the plan is declared. A new creation with free will is coming. Second, the forces of nature, the angels, they question the risk involved in that freedom. Third, and this is key, humankind is given something unique, the ability to attain knowledge. And fourth, Adam demonstrates this ability, showing a capacity for learning and naming things that goes way beyond the angels' fixed programming. So again, this isn't meant as a story about biology, it's a powerful metaphor for how consciousness, knowledge, and free will are seen as a special gift and endowment that sets humanity apart.
Okay, but let's be real, that's one perspective. There are some very powerful, very rational counter-arguments to all of this, coming straight from a scientific or physicalist point of view, and we absolutely have to look at those to get the full picture.
All right, so the materialist rebuttal comes in a few key flavors. First, there's the God of the gaps argument. This is the idea that it's a logical fallacy to just plug God or a creator into any hole in our current scientific knowledge. History shows those gaps tend to shrink, right? Second, the idea of consciousness as an emergent property. This is a huge one. The argument is that it just happens when a system gets complex enough. Kind of like how individual H2O molecules aren't wet, but when you get a bunch of them together, you get wetness. No magic spark needed, just complexity. Third, they say our whole analogy of creating AI is flawed. We're just rearranging matter that already exists. That's totally different from a creator making a universe ex nihilo, literally, out of nothing. And finally, some philosophers and scientists argue that the hard problem isn't really a problem at all. They think it's just a confusion in our concepts and our language, and that one day, neuroscience will just dissolve the mystery completely.
So when you put it all side by side like this, you can really see the fundamental split, can't you? On one side, you have the view that the hard problem points to something beyond the physical, that consciousness is fundamental, maybe even a gift, and our creativity mirrors a creator. On the other side, the view is, no, the hard problem is just a tough scientific puzzle. Consciousness emerges from the brain's complexity, and the creator analogy just doesn't hold up. 2 totally different ways of looking at the same incredible fact of our own existence.
And you know what? Maybe the most important takeaway here isn't about picking a side and saying, this is the final answer. The real value might just be in the journey itself, in the very act of asking these questions. This is where science, philosophy, and even spirituality all come together to try and help us understand ourselves, to figure out what it even means to be a conscious being in this incredible universe.
Which leaves us with this one last thing to think about. As we keep pushing forward, as we get closer and closer to building new minds in our own image, what deep, primordial echo are we actually answering? Are we just flexing our technological muscles, or are we taking part in a creative cycle that started long, long before us? Thanks so much for watching.